Hello and welcome. Welcome to Quilt Conversations Live. I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter, and I'm so glad to be with you on this cold winter day. Is it cold where you are? I know that many places in the US, the temperatures are frigid, below freezing, as it is here where I am in Fredericksburg. It's been very cold. We had snow overnight and today. And I see someone in the chat said that they are snowed in. Who said that? Was that you, Marcia? Marcia is snowed in. Hopefully you're toasty and warm. Hello, Rochelle. So glad that you're here. And Lori, I'm glad you're off on Fridays too. Welcome, welcome. Hello, Cassie. So glad you're here. And Jennifer is here. Awesome. Welcome, Jennifer. So glad that you're here. I just want everyone to know who's on Facebook, there is a lively bunch of ladies on YouTube as well. So you can go any place you want, Facebook or YouTube, but just let you know, there's a lot of lively ladies on the YouTube chat. Who else is here? Hello, Wilda. So glad that you're here. Hello, Jacqueline. Ladies, we're going to talk about why we quilt. Why we quilt. And how did I get to this topic for tonight? Well, I was thinking about our last conversation about our goals for this year as quilters, crafters, sewers, what we want to do. And we talked about thinking big, right? Not small goals, but a really big goal with small goals in between, right? So, as I thought about that, and I shared with you last time the story of Joseph and the big goal plan that God had for him to become chancellor over Egypt, but he was a little boy, a shepherd. When he was told this, he didn't know what that all meant. And he had a process that he had to go through, things he had to learn before he could actually reach that goal. He had a lot of small steps, small goals to get to that really big goal. So I was thinking about that and I shared with you some of my experiences, and it seemed like you enjoyed some of those stories. So I wonder, let me know in the chat, would you be interested in knowing why I quilt, how I ended up becoming a quilter? How many of you have heard about how I became a photographer? Because that is connected to how I became a quilter. Let me know in the chat. And I also want to know, as you think about why you make quilts, think way back to when you first were introduced to quilting. And then why you said, I want to sew fabric together to make a quilt. What was the first thing that happened that made you say, I want to make quilts? And then think about where you are today compared to where you were when you first started. Okay? Let's see. Yes, tell us, says Marcia. Tell us. All right. It's interesting. So Marcia says she has a porch full of snow. Snow in Philly as well. We had snow, like I mentioned, and then this morning when I looked out my uh, kitchen window onto my deck, I saw footprints in the snow. Now, they weren't footprints of humans, they were big prints of some kind of animal. I don't know what kind. It was frolicking all over the deck. And I'm like, okay, I opened the door, I looked to see closely. Were they small, like for a squirrel? No, they were bigger. What animal? I don't know. My house backs up into a wetlands, so sometimes I'll see deer running through the back. One time I saw a fox in the front yard, so I'm not sure. Cassie says, bring it on. All right, so Lori also says, Dina, what inspired you to start quilting? So let's go back, way back. Well, not that far back. I'm not old enough to go that far back. Okay. Yeah, I have a new friend. I don't know who it is. So, as we grow up in life, there are people who encourage us and there are people who discourage us, not because sometimes they intend to do that. They could just be like that character Eeyore, right? Just pessimistic, and they can't see the glass half full. They always see it half empty, right? So I developed an interest in photography, and my sister's boyfriend, who she ended up marrying, became a police officer in New York City. And he worked at a precinct right next to a well known photographer, Austin Hanson. He had a black and white studio. He did portraiture. Austin Hanson, if you look him up on Google, he's a well known photographer in Harlem, New York City, Manhattan. He took photos, historical photos throughout Harlem. When the Queen of England came to visit, all the actors and actresses that from yesteryear, like Ossie Davis, Lena Horne, all sorts of actors in Harlem. He took pictures of them and of the community, the parades, the people. He did events, he did portraiture. So, anyway, by the time I met him, he was in his early, say, 80, late 70s, early 80s, still taking pictures, still training young photographers. And so my sister's then husband said, I have someone who wants to become a photographer. Would you consider meeting her and being a mentor to her? And so that's what happened. I end up going to his studio, going with him to different events as his assistant. He taught me how to develop black and white film. He taught me how to create prints in the dark room. I would go and help him with making prints and learning about portrait photography. He was the one who told me about the School for Visual Arts that he went to, and suggested that I go to as well. So I did. It was a school in Manhattan that was an accelerated photography, 18 months. So that's what I did. Hello, Benita. So glad that you're here. And he encouraged me as a photographer, as a young photographer. And I'm so thankful for that experience. And it was through him I learned the basics of photography, and then, of course, going to the school. So, long story, cutting it a little bit shorter. There's a lot of in betweens, but I'm going to condense it. What ends up happening is that I met someone who was going to a job fair in New York City, and for journalists. And I knew that I enjoyed photography, but it was mostly landscape, a little bit of portraiture, but mostly landscape scenic type photography. So I went with him, and then I met two important people. Now, what I want you to pay attention to is that when we start to live a big life, big goals, we think bigger than ourselves, we are more open to opportunities, right? Nothing seems impossible. We're more open. So I went to this job fair with him. I met two people. One was a recruiter for the Los Angeles Times, internship program, and one was a recruiter for the New York Newsday newspaper internship program. And I end up getting an internship with both. First with the New York paper, and then I applied for the Los Angeles Times internship twice before I got in. The first time I didn't make it. The second time, which was after I completed the internship at the New York paper, I got into the Los Angeles Times. And I end up staying there for 13 years. 13 years at the Los Angeles Times. And during that time, well, let me step back. While I was at the New York paper, I had the privilege of being the intern assistant for one of the chief photographers there at the Democratic National Convention in New York. That was when the very first digital camera was used, and it was made by Kodak. It was so big that it was 2 parts, and that's why that photographer needed me, the intern. The processor for that digital camera was so big, someone had to carry it. That was me. I carried the processor while the photographer took pictures at that convention. Look it up. It's online. You will see it. The first digital camera ever used, and used for newspaper photography. So I did that. I had that experience. Then I went to the Los Angeles Times, and within 6 months of arriving, an earthquake happened. And I was within miles of the epicenter. I took pictures during that. I was on the team that documented the Northridge earthquake, which someone reminded me was 10 years ago this week. And as a result, I end up being a part of the team that won the Pulitzer Prize. Can you imagine that? Meeting different people, taking a risk, thinking big, right? This was before I was a believer in Jesus, before I knew and understood that God had a plan for my life. So, while I'm in California, I begin to seek out something beyond photography, something beyond the Los Angeles Times, something bigger than myself. And that is a relationship with God and a calling that's bigger than me. So I prayed a prayer. I said, God, you have given me this gift of photography. How do you want to use it? And this is how he opened the door for me to join an international publication. He led me. There's a lot of little stories in between, and one day I'll share some of those, but I'm going to go through this very quickly. I end up leaving the Los Angeles Times and joining a publication called Calvary Chapel Magazine, international publication, and I traveled the world with my camera taking pictures. Let me show you some of those magazines. I don't think I've ever showed them here before. I've talked about them. Let's see, overhead camera. Here we go. So I went to the Philippines and to Thailand for a month. This was way back in 2004. That's how long ago it was. And I got a chance to go around and document different mission work happening in various countries. Philippines, we would go to the prisons and serve and minister there, whether it was prayer or food or what have you, and I would take pictures. So here are some of the pictures that I took. and I met some amazing people and women. There's one woman that I met because I went to the Philippines several times at a prison where she was there for a short time. And then when I went back the next time, she was released and she found me. She found me at an outdoor event that we had, and she gave me a gift because she remembered that I came to visit her while she was in prison. Although I was there to take pictures, I also had an opportunity to develop relationships with different people in different parts of the world. Then I went to India, and I had a chance to meet some amazing people there as well, spend time with them in their homes, at Bible colleges, many places. And I have one interesting story. Did I ever tell you the story about the monkeys in the trees? Did I ever tell you that story? Let me know in the chat. Hello, Diana. So glad that you're here. Hello, Jan. We are in the middle of sharing how I became a quilter, and it all starts with my calling to be an international photographer and how God put that all together. Did I ever share the story about taking pictures in India when there were monkeys in the trees? Did I ever share that? Okay. I'm checking the chat to see if I ever shared that. So I don't want to share it again if um, you've already heard it. I think it's well. Hello, Gigi. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome. So as I traveled to all of these countries, I started to not only photograph, but meet some amazing women. India, Iraq, Mexico, the Philippines. And one thing that I saw over and over again in multiple countries was that sewing could make a difference in their life. Let's see. So Rochelle says she feels like she's remember a story like that. Kind of. Okay, Diana says that she hasn't heard it. So I'll do a quick rendition of it. So I was in India at a conference, and at the main building where we would have our meals, we would have to go from that building to another building, walk up a hill, pass this wooded area to go to the main conference area. And when we packed, the wooded area actually had a garden at the top. You could go up some steps, and at the very top, there was a garden. And that's where you could go and just enjoy some quiet time, meditate, just have private conversations. It was very nice. At the end of the conference, they asked, "Hey, would you take a group photo?" And I said, "Sure." Now, for a whole week, I'm going from the main house all the way up the hill to the conference center, back and forth. And I stayed in one of the rooms in the main house. So I did that trip multiple times during the week. And so I took pictures. I said, you know what? Come by the hill where the garden is. And a group photo, the best way to take it is if the photographer is up high and looking down so that you can get all the faces. So I did that. And then the conference was over, and I was in another building at the very end. Most of the conference attendees had left, and it was just me and the other people from America who came. And so I was in my room, really working, and I felt something looking at me. You know how you can sense something is watching you? So I turned my head and I looked out the window, and there in the trees were these monkeys. I had not seen any all week. So I left my room, went to another room to tell my friends, "Hey, there are monkeys in the trees." And they looked at me like, and I said, "What do you mean, and?" So we went outside now. It was a small building, one-story building with a fence around it. And those monkeys had migrated from the trees behind the house where I saw them through the window to the front of the house. And they were on the roof and on the fence. And they were laughing at me. They were chuckling. And I said, "Why are you laughing?" They said, "Well, they've been here all week. You haven't seen them?" I said, "No. I haven't seen one monkey all week." They said, "Come on, you have to be kidding." I said, "No." And so one of the men pointed out to a bench and they said, "See over there by that bench, there's a monkey over there." And they warned me, "Don't feed them because then there'll be a whole bunch on you." I said, "Oh, no problem with that. I'm not going to feed any." And then another one said, "Remember when you took the photo, the group photo, and you were up on the hill, you climbed the steps up the hill? You didn't see the monkeys above your head going back and forth over the trees?" I'm like, "No, I didn't see that." I was like, "Really?" So that's one of the experiences I had. But understand that every time I went to another country, every single time I went to another country, I would pray because I have certain fears. Even though I have these fears, they didn't stop me from going. When we have big goals, sometimes it's okay to be fearful, to be tentative, but to still act on the goal, right? So I would pray, I don't want to see any bugs. I don't want any encounters with wild animals. And so every single time, I believe this with all my heart, God would blind my eyes to their presence. They would be there, but I wouldn't see them. And that happened with the monkeys. So, Philippines, India, that's one story there. I went to Israel, Mexico. We went to Mexico to minister and encourage children who suffered from severe burns. And Iraq. Amazing, amazing trip in Iraq where I met some beautiful people who one lady said to me um, that she prayed for the American soldiers years ago when they came and was thankful that America came. But she couldn't tell her fellow people because of it, but she knew that God had sent them. I also went to Egypt and spent time at an Egypt church. So, big goals, big goals. So, are you a risk taker? I share all that to say that looking at me, if you meet me, I'm a quiet person. I'm not, very talkative, except when I'm here. You wouldn't know that I've taken these risks. I've had these big things happen in my life. And I'm sharing all this to say is there are benefits to taking action. There are also consequences to both action and inaction. No matter what your goal is, especially, as we talk about why we quilt, right? Quilting came as a result of meeting all these ladies when I took this big risk and God opened my eyes that if women learned how to sew, it could make a difference. So I started praying. I said, "God, I know I won't be a photographer forever. Can I learn how to sew, to quilt, to help other women learn how to sew and quilt? If it can change the path of their life, help them put food on the table, help them have their own business, give them a skill that helps them to relax after a full day of working, whatever the reason. And so I kept praying that prayer over and over. Now, initially, I started to learn how to quilt for me to get to know ladies in this new community. When I left the LA Times and went to this publication, I moved to Virginia. And I wasn't getting to know people because I was always on a plane somewhere. So when I came back, I said, I got to get to know someone because I'm all alone here in Virginia, no family. So I saw in the church bulletin that there was a quilting group. So I said, okay, ladies, do that. I will go. I had a small little machine, and I said, I'm going to learn how to quilt, but also get to know some of the ladies in the church and get to know people in Virginia by learning how to sew in this group, how to quilt in this group. So that's how that began. One, I wanted to get to know other women in my community. Two, I wanted to use that as a way to reach women outside of my community. Relationships, building relationships through quilting. Can you see how that big goal initially to become a photographer ends up taking me down a road to quilting? I didn't sew before that. I sewed a little bit of home decor when I was in California just to do projects like pillows and stuff around the house. No one in my family, immediate family, sisters, brothers, sew or make a quilt. In fact, they have very little interest. My mom did a lot of knitting and crochet, but no sewing. My sisters did garment sewing, but no quilting, no crafting, none whatsoever. So as I check the chat, I don't think I see anyone mention how they and why they quilt. Why do you quilt? When did you start? Why did you start? And what was the first quilt that you made? Why did you make it? Was it a gift? Was it a way to build relationships with other people, to join a social group? Was it to learn so that you could teach others? Oh, you're welcome, Cassie. Amen, Lori. That is so true. That's right. I have friends worldwide. That is very true. I count it a privilege and a tremendous blessing to be able to share the gifts and talents that God has given me with others. That is my heart's desire. So, MC said she wanted to make a baby quilt. That was what introduced her to quilting. She wanted to make a quilt. Ladies, please share. Why do you quilt? I'm sure everyone is interested to know why you made your first quilt. Yes, Rochelle, that is so important. Obedience. Sometimes it can be a fearful thing when you don't know the outcome of doing a certain thing. You think, well, is this going to matter? Why should I do this? Why should I go? I don't know how. But I heard someone say recently, rather than be a no because person, glass half empty, be a yes and act person. They said a yes and. So when you say yes, the next step is and what's next? The next step is to act. What holds you back from pursuing your goals, pursuing obedience if you're a believer in Christ, that He has a calling on your life, pursuing anything? What prevents you from pursuing it, from acting on it? Not just being a hearer or a watcher, but being someone who is a doer, a doer. Believe it or not, when we don't act, that is still a decision. Is a decision not to do anything. And that has a consequence. Oh, your son was in the Air Force during the Iraq. Oh, wow. That is a good reason. Lori says she quilts for relaxation and enjoyment, and she enjoys giving them away to family and friends. And I'm sure you've heard recently there's a study that quilting and sewing is a good way to relax. So Rochelle says that she's been quilting off and on since a child at my grandmother's knee. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Lori says, my women's soccer team was gifted with some free material, so we decided to make and sell blankets to raise money to attend a tournament. None of us knew much, but I enjoyed the process and I made the most. Gigi says she started in 2020 because she wanted to learn a new skill. I purchased a long arm and I have no clue what I'm doing. I say, fantastic. That's a big goal. When you don't know what you're doing, that's an opportunity to learn. Yes, wonderful. I quilt because I enjoy it and I love to learn new techniques. Beautiful. Wonderful. Oh, Gigi says she's a photographer as well. Yes, it was a wonderful opportunity. And I have more stories, ladies. Some of them are just quite unbelievable, but they happened. So, as I embarked on this idea that I was going to be a teacher. Remember I said in the beginning there's some people who are Eeyores who when you voice your calling or your desire to embark on something, what seems impossible, they can decide, oh, you can never do that. You know, when I was a photographer and I said I wanted to be a photographer, several people said, oh, no, that can't happen. No, you'll never be a photographer. That's impossible. No, but it's too hard. Only a few people become really good photographers and work for big newspapers. So Natasha says she always wanted to learn it as an art that needs to continue and be passed down. Yes. Fantastic. A 2-day seminar and you loved it. Wonderful. You've made 3 quilts. Congratulations. Awesome. I'm so glad. Lori says, my husband retired and I'm working part-time, so I have time to dedicate to quilting. Yes, we do have seasons of when we can embark on these journeys. Cassie says she started while she was in college during the 70s and she never stopped. Now she makes story quilts. I love this, ladies. Hey, and there's Jan. She I don't know if I can share, this message is going to be quite big, but she started I was diagnosed with cancer and I needed something to take up my thoughts, and I started this cancer journey. I did not want to become obsessed with my illness, so I began to pray and ask for guidance for healthy decisions. God began to talk to me about quilting. I started at 66 years old. Wow, I'm going to put this up anyway. I'm going to see if I can resize it so you ladies can see it, for those of you who are not on Facebook, those who are on YouTube, well, we're never too old. Thank you for sharing, Jan. That is true. We can start at any time. So if you're watching, if you're new and you only started a year ago, 2 years ago, it doesn't matter. You have started. That is the big thing. No matter what it is, it's sewing, it's quilting, it's garment sewing, it's quilt making. We're talking about why we quilt today. But when we don't start, we have already failed. So start. If you want to learn a new skill in quilting, start. Don't talk yourself out of it. Just know that when there's a big goal, there are little goals leading to that. And you just take it one step at a time. So, with that said, you know that how I started quilting, why I started quilting, and part of why, as you know, is because I want to help others learn to sew and quilt. And that's why I am a quilting teacher. Not only am I a quilter, but that's why I like to teach, right? It is a calling. And I have put together, as you know, some new classes to help you reach your goals. And last time I showed you some pictures of that, but today, I want to share with you some of the actual small samples and quilts. I want to show them to you live. So I'm going to go away for one moment because it's a big stack, and I'll be right back. So that was fast, wasn't too long, right? So, okay, Jacqueline says that she started quilting for missions. Been quilting, oops, let me get this back over here, for 8 years. Yes, and she loves to try new methods. Wonderful. Let's see, what else? Jan says she just purchased a sit down. Fantastic. Congratulations, a Bernina Q20. Jacqueline says, I'll be 69 and I haven't started yet. Jacqueline, get started. Get started. Join us. It's good for the soul. Yes, I agree with that, Gigi. Yes. Wilda says she started when she retired. Just dive in. Yes. Find a local group that helps beginners. Often you can find that at local libraries. You will never regret it. You not only learn a skill, you learn and meet different ladies and develop warm relationships. As a result of me joining my church group and meeting ladies at different guilds, I have made some wonderful friendships. And one of the best, I have to say, I'm so thankful for is Wilda. She's in the chat on YouTube. Wilda is not just a friend, she's my sister in Christ. She's my prayer partner. She is an encourager. She is a gift from God. Wonderful. All right, so let's take a look. Let's take a look. All right, overhead camera, where are you? There we go. All right, so as you know, I will be teaching at AQS, American Quilter Society show in Paducah, Kentucky in April. And one of the classes is a free motion quilting class. This is a confident beginner class. It's on a sit down long arm or Bernina. That's a Bernina classroom. And we're going to learn spirals and swirls. Spirals and swirls. And we're going to also learn about how to take a design like a spiral and a swirl and put it in a real quilt, to go from practicing a design to actually putting it in a quilt, right? So, for those of you who know, I always talk about practice, 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 right? And we have to start with some type of practice. And so I always start with small quilt sandwiches, and then I start going toward smaller projects. So this is a zippered pouch, right? I took a fat quarter and I used it, fat quarter, did some ruler quilting, and then I did some ribbon spirals along the edge. This is an opportunity for me to practice. I start with small quilt sandwiches and then small projects. That's how I graduate from one small thing and slowly get to the big quilt. Steps, right, ladies? Steps. Here's another example. Some ruler quilting in the center and then some spirals. And this again is a zippered pouch. So I decided that I was going to make a series of pouches with some ruler quilting and then spirals. The next class is a beginner class. It's called Power Lines. And you ladies know that I love my pre-printed panels to help practice techniques. So this is straight line ruler quilting, learning how to just use a ruler to do stitch in the ditch, how to do straight line designs. And again, you know, my panels, they're small, they're 12.5 inches square. And there goes my pouch again, right? Making a practice piece into something practical. It can also be a straight mini quilt. So I show you different options on how to ruler quilt with straight lines. You can be very creative with straight line quilting. Now, this same ruler for this class has a curve, a gentle curve. And that gentle curve, same quilt panel, I show you how to stitch using the curved side of the ruler. This is a beginner class, right? For those of you just starting. Oh, thank you. I've had these for a little while, Lori. These are not new. Every once in a while, I'll do a new one, but these I've had maybe a couple of years now. And then here's the other side. The idea is to see how much you can do with one thing, with one ruler. Okay? And by the way, the classes are already open. It was open to members to register, and ladies are signing up. The classes are filling up. This one is for a class called Going in Circles. Going in Circles means we use a circle template to make designs. And I think this is so fun. We're using a circle template to quilt. And this could be on your home machine, which is, I think the home Going in Circles will be on a domestic machine at AQS. So I'm teaching in multiple classrooms, either with a long arm or with a domestic machine. So Going in Circles will be a domestic machine. That's one design. Here's another design made with circles, stitched on a home machine. Isn't that fun? I love that. It's so fun. And I show you how to do this step by step. And the bonus for my classes is that you get a 2-scale design pattern sheet, meaning you can take the ruler, you can put it on the design sheet to figure out exactly how to stitch, so that once you leave the class, you will have something to use when you're at home. This is another circle-based design, also stitched with some straight lines. Yep, fun, fun, fun. And of course, I go from practice sandwiches to a panel. So I'm adding straight lines, adding what I know how to stitch, and then stitching in some circle-based designs in between straight lines. Where I get my labels. I think the labels are from customlabels.com. Customlabels.com. You're talking about this label here. Yes, it's a cloth label. And I have a gazillion of them. I try to remember to put it on every project. So we've had this conversation before, is that you always, my recommendation is that you always stitch what you know, but always add something new. If you make that a habit, your library of designs that you can stitch will grow. So I know how to stitch straight lines with a ruler or a walking foot. If I'm learning how to stitch a circle-based design, I will stitch straight lines, and then in between the straight lines, I will stitch a circle design. Okay? You're welcome, Diana. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. Hey, Terry, so glad that you're here. The next class is another ruler-based class. It's for confident beginners. It takes designing to the next stage. It's with the clamshell ruler. And I love the clamshell ruler. Now, the clamshell, is half of a circle. It's just shaped differently, right? And so we can make this design with the circle and with the clamshell ruler. The techniques are just a little bit different on how you make the design, whether you use the clamshell ruler or the circle. So this is very similar. And then we can make this design with the clamshell ruler, which I love this one. This is how it looks. And ladies, do you notice that in my practice pieces, my samples, I'm using a fabric that blends with the fabric. I mean, using a thread rather that blends with the fabric. I can see what the texture of the thread looks like. Yes, me too. So, and then on the back, I'm using a fabric that will be a contrast. So I have a contrast on one side, a blending on the other side. You may have heard me share often on social media, practice with purpose, practice with purpose. So every time that you're practicing, remember the different things that you want to learn. If you want to learn how to select thread, do that in your practice piece. Meaning, take a thread and find fabric that blends with that thread and one that will contrast so that you can see what that looks like. Then you have an example, not only for the ruler quilting, you have an example, or the free motion quilting, you have an example for thread selection. Here's another design made with the clamshell ruler. Love that. Scallops, contrasting, and then blending texture, right? Clamshell. So once we learn the technique, the reason why you want these smaller pieces is because you want to learn the technique, how to hold a ruler, how to place it, how to get consistency, all of those things you want to learn and practice. Because the more you do it, the more confident you will be. And so that when you get to a bigger piece, like one of my panels, and if you like any of these panels, they're available on my website. All you have to do is go to machinequilting.live. I usually have that on the on the screen, but it's machinequilting.live. Will go to my website. And in the chat, the very top comment is a link to my website. So these panels are available. But look how I've taken a clamshell design and then I put some little circles in between. Always combining techniques. That's what's going to give you interest in your quilts. Whatever you know, combine it with something you're learning. And so, of course, on the back, I have a contrasting fabric. I just love this design, kind of an inchworm look, all with the clamshell ruler. Okay. The other thing that I'll point out is this is going in rows, right? Or columns. Think about how you place a design on a quilt panel or your quilt. Let me pick up one here. All right. Here's an example where instead of doing it in rows, same panel, right? This panel is bigger, this one is smaller, but I didn't stitch the design in rows, I stitched it on a diagonal. That adds more interest, right? So you can take any design and just change how you place it to give it a completely different look, right? Okay. Yes, Terry, always. If you do that consistently, make that a goal. You, by the end, anyone, by the end of the year, will have added more to your possibilities of quilting designs. You choose what it is. Either it's a new acrylic ruler that you want to learn, or maybe it's a new free motion quilting pattern that you want to learn. You take what you know and you add that free motion quilting pattern or that ruler quilting pattern. And as you add that pattern, you're practicing it. You're going to change the scale of it. You're going to change the position of it, how you place it on the quilt. Either it's going to be a background pattern or it's going to be an all over pattern. Thank you, Lori, for that reminder. The next class is really, really fun, ladies. It is the dots and dashes class. I love this one. I also call it dot to dot. And we learn how to use a unique ruler to make beautiful designs. A block-based design like this. This can also be put in the border or the corner of a quilt. Fun, fun, fun. But not only that, you will learn these techniques, these patterns in that class. You will also learn how to do beautiful edge to edge. And if you're paying attention, do you notice that we can change the distance between dots? They can be a short distance or a big distance, right? We can have the rows of them alternate in position. I love that. Notice how this one is long. These are short, long. Variations. We're going to learn how to do that. And then, of course, what's the next step in our journey? Step by step, we're increasing our skills to go from small quilt sandwiches to what? A quilt. But in between that, we need some smaller projects. This is a pillow cover, an insert to put a pillow in. So one side, another one of my panels, has that same design that I used to practice on, right? To practice on the fat quarter. The other side of the pillow cover is a random edge to edge design with the same acrylic ruler. And this is just a way to learn how to place it in what will become a pieced quilt. With a panel, you don't worry about the piecing, you just worry about placement of the design on the panel. This is dot to dot. And same panel, but now look at the difference of the placement. Think about, ladies, what you know. Let us know in the chat. How do you quilt your small projects? Do you use a walking foot? Do you use free motion? Do you use ruler quilting? Have you changed the way what you know how to do and place it differently? Do you stitch vertically? Do you stitch on the diagonal? Do you do echo quilting around the piecing? Think about how you quilt your projects. So MC says she uses a walking foot. So many options with a walking foot on what you can do. You can do echo quilting. You can stitch on the diagonal. You can divide your quilt into sections and do a, a section that looks like a log cabin, if you will, of quilting, and then do straight lines in a different direction. Michelle says that she promises to continue her grandmother's tradition of quilting and to make quilts for babies born into the family. A wonderful tradition to pass on. Oh, fantastic. Gia, she just got the sit down. Bernina, awesome. The Q16. Don't be terrified. Don't be terrified. One step at a time. One, you go through the manual, page by page. Get to know the machine. She is your friend and she will help you. Your machine will help you finish quilts. So you need to get to know her like a friend, right? Know everything about her. Then go to the Bernina website and download, if you haven't already, their Mastery Workbook. The Mastery Workbook will help you take the next step in using your sit down. All right? Awesome. I'm glad I'm helping. Now, from a panel, I wanted to show you a quilt block. This is the Beautiful Sister quilt block. This is still with the dot to dot ruler. Can you see the dots? See the dots? I'm going to show you the back so that you can see the design. So just using the back side of the foot pedal is uncomfortable. There's certain techniques that we have to learn how to use. There isn't a button to push. You learn how to use the pedal. It will be your friend. I know it takes time, but you can do it. You can. So notice how I've placed the same design on this block. I used it to frame around the face. Lori, you're so funny. The back turned out fabulous. So you can't see this maybe on camera, but you can still see the orange thread in the background. Let's see if I can hold it up a little bit for you. See that orange thread? Contrasting thread, right? I did that on purpose, right? It's blending here, but contrasting on the black. Now I've gone through all the stages of learning how to use the ruler, how to design with the ruler. I've practiced. I'm more confident. I went from a practice quilt sandwich to a panel, and now I'm working on a small quilt block, right? So those were all the AQS classes. I know we're just about out of time. It's 8 o'clock. Are you ladies willing to stay a little bit longer? Let's see here. Are you willing to stay just a little bit longer so that I can share with you, if you are not going to be at AQS, what can you do, right? I have thought of, I hope, mostly everyone, no matter where you are in your machine quilting journey, ruler quilting or free motion. If you can't be at the show, you can take one of my online classes. Great. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Michelle, for letting me know. You like that, Gia. Thank you. Yes, please share, says Jacqueline. So, if you missed the last time we were together, I talked about one of my popular classes for free motion quilting, the alphabet design course. I went through that course over the holidays. I added more videos. There's 10 more videos. It goes through what I call the alphabet drills, and many of you are in the class. I just received an assignment from one of you ladies. It was Kimberly. I'm so glad she sent it. She is going through the drills. She sent me a photo and talked about some of the supporting videos for tips on different tools that she tried that made a difference. So I want you to go through it. Again, even if you have gone through the class and you think you can't learn anything new, I'm telling you, you're going to learn something new. 10 new videos, more instructions. Go through it. And just like a musician, we need to practice our scales. We need to practice over and over and over again. And as I went through the workbook, the alphabet stitching path, I was inspired to make new designs, which I share in those videos. Excuse me. So if you are new to the alphabet design class, let me show you what I'm talking about. This is a video that I shared last time, and this is one of the new videos that's in the course. I'm talking, doing a voiceover on each video, giving you tips as I stitch out these designs, and share with you and encourage you to do the same, to go through them. So here is, let's see, let me go to my overhead camera. What am I talking about when I say alphabet drills? The alphabet drills are based on the alphabet, and you're going to stitch your shapes based on the alphabet. So this would be your A, your B, your C, your D, etc. This is even a C going in different directions. This is your U. Okay? You're going to do that. Then you go to the next set of letters. J, L's, M's, S's, O's, T's, etc., W's. As you do that, you will start to think about new designs. One thing that I heard someone say this week is that the more we act, meaning the more we do, the more discoveries, the more possibilities open up to us. Because as we experience and do it, inspiration comes, creativity is opened. So that's why it's important to do the drills. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. So, as a result of doing these, right? As a result of going through each of these, and you can do it like I did here, but I recommend do a whole half of a fat quarter on each letter, right? And it's all in the stitching path handout. I move from that to this. These are all based on the alphabet drills. This is the letter S. These scallops are U, right? Because we're going to change the size, the scale of every alphabet drill. I talk about that in the video. How do you change the scale? How do you change just a little bit? And the placement, right? When we put them close together, when we put them further apart, all of that will start to come together as you work on it. Okay, That being said, let me move through this quickly. We're going to run out of time. This is a table runner that I stitched all with alphabet based designs. This is a cascading S. It's basically the S shape echoed. Okay. Here's our letter O, different sizes and echoed, which is basically dots, right? But I'm thinking letter O. Here's our letter U that looks like scales on a fish. It's still the letter U, right? Box letters, one after another. Here's our letter C. Okay, and this is the letter V. When I add the letter V and do an echo and stitch them right next to each other, I get this beautiful design. Look at that. That is based on the letter V, row by row and echoed. Okay? So I want you to get better at free motion quilting, but you must do the work, ladies. And then next is another ruler-based course. I have several on AQS, right? But I know you need some that are on demand on my website that you can visit and watch the videos anytime, whether it's on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. You can revisit them over and over again. And one is with this Cascade ruler. It is a new course based on a curve challenge. Isn't that a beautiful design? I love this design. So I started off small, right? Learn a technique. Start off small. This is just 3 rows with the cascade, with the ruler. Squiggle ruler, cascade design. Then I practice again, but with a bigger piece of fabric. This is all in the course, right? And this is the course of the month. You get 10% off for the month of January. And you know, I go from the practice pieces to one of my quilt panels. And of course, what did I do? I repeat, I put it on the diagonal so that it creates this beautiful design. Can you see that? This is from the Cascade Ruler Quilting, Curve Ruler Quilting Challenge. Now, this is a good question. Do I use manual stitching or BSR? When I'm on my sit down Bernina, I'm using the BSR. But you will see me stitch out this cascade design on my domestic machine because the online class shows me using the ruler on both a Burnett 79 domestic machine that does not have stitch regulation, and you will see me stitch with that same ruler on a sit down long arm. You will see both. Okay. All right. So this is the cascade design with the squiggle ruler. Now, if you're just starting ruler quilting, you can't make it to AQS for the power lines. You can start with Ruler Quilt A Star. Ruler Quilt A Star is all about learning the basics of straight line quilting. I show you 2 different triangle designs. I show you how to do the echo here. There's variations of echoes. And then we concentrate on how to do these radiating lines like here, and how to do a continuous crosshatch without breaking thread. All demoed, all taught step by step with diagrams and video instruction. Okay. So I've given you a host of opportunities to go big with your goals. Free motion quilting, machine quilting with a ruler or with free motion, straight line quilting, curvy quilting, in person classes, online classes. Last but not least, thank you for hanging out, ladies, is something new that has been opened up to me, and that is either on Instagram or here on YouTube, and that is a membership. For this year, I'm going to go live in Studio B. Studio B is my Bernina sit down studio where I'm going to work on projects live. And as a member, you get a chance to look over my shoulder and watch and get tips as I work on various projects, or you can quilt alongside me. You can work on your project at the same time that I'm working on mine and hear the different tips. And if you want to know what that's like, all you have to do is go to the YouTube channel and check out the Studio B where I quilted this live. I showed you step by step how I stitched out this whole cloth panel, how I added the lines with rulers, the free motion quilting, how I stitched words, how I stitched the design in her neck, in her hair. Go back and look at that because that's an example. I will go live twice a month, Thursdays, the second and fourth Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can chat with me, watch me, stitch alongside with me. Another opportunity to take action, not just think about what you're going to do, but to commit to actually taking the next step in your quilting journey. So, ladies, so many opportunities to go big, to reach your machine quilting goals. Me as a teacher, you know why I quilt, how that started. And I quilt and I teach because I've been called to do so, to help you in your quilting journey. And as Lori shared earlier, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and to also hit the notification bell so that you can get notified when I go live. And give it a thumbs up on YouTube, give it a heart on Facebook, and something else that's new on YouTube, underneath the video, you can see a couple of things. One, it says join. That's where you can join to become a member and join me in Studio B as I work on different projects. Just click that. You'll get all the information about what that means. And then on the opposite side, you'll see something that says thanks. If you enjoy any of my videos or the live sessions that we have, you can click thanks to show your appreciation. That's always appreciated. Thank you. And lastly, if you're interested in any of the classes that are online, just go to machinequilting.live. Check them out. And the class of the month is the Curved Ruler Quilting Challenge with the Squiggle, 10% off. Ladies, thank you for allowing me to share part of my journey as to why I quilt. I'm thankful for that chance to share with you the stories. You're welcome, Jacqueline. You're very welcome. I appreciate all of you, and I am thankful that you were willing to stay a little bit longer during this Quilt Conversations live. I'll see you next month. The first Friday is Friday, February 2nd. You are welcome, Lori. You are welcome. Have a wonderful and safe weekend. Stay warm for those of you in cold places. I'll see you next time for another Quilt Conversations live. Oh, you're welcome, Michelle. You're welcome. You're welcome, Diana. Welcome, Cassie. Good night. You're welcome, Wilda. Good night, ladies.